Hello, one and all, and welcome to another episode of Baggers Chat. My name is Mitch Patterson, and as always, we are joined by Ethan Daffy. And of course, the lid is, I've got to start off with a bang. The lid is well and truly off this week. We have beaten Port Adelaide. We have beaten the streak of 13 matches in a row from their end. Of course, final scores were Carlton, 18 points, 18 goals, 14 points, 122 to Port Adelaide, 10 goals, 12, 72. But apparently, they had so many outs that the win wasn't really as meaningful. But Daffy boy, to start off, how are you, mate?
I'm well, mate. I think we're both in a very similar situation. We both turned up at halftime for our own circumstances. Obviously, we both always go for a full game, but obviously circumstances. We made it. We're that nuffy that we still made it to the game. So, it was fantastic win. Really, really good. I rewatched most of it today, especially the first half, just to get a real sense of what was going on. Obviously, Mum was there before, and she kind of was telling me at the game what was going on in the first quarter. Obviously, a bit frustrating in front of goal, but it was really good, man. And yeah, the lid's off for me. I think, the Freo game, you could kind of tell something was changing. We took control in that game, and then it happened again. It's happened 4 weeks in a row. And you can talk about 2022, but me personally, that's one of the best games of Carlton footy I've seen in a long, long, long time. No passengers. Couldn't really name a negative, to be honest with you. Obviously, maybe Chera and Cripps were quiet in the first half, but you could see they're both still integral to the team in that game. And what are they going to say now? Seriously, what are they going to say now? Like, we've flown under the radar since that Gold Coast game, which I've loved. No one really talking about finals, which we probably hadn't earned the right yet to be talking about finals before probably the Port Adelaide and Freo games. But I just knew, especially in that Hawthorn game, I know they're a lower opposition, but we just put it to them. And I've never seen a Carlton team put away teams like this ever. Even last year, we rarely put teams away, and that ultimately led to our downfall in terms of we missed by percentage. And you look at the ladder now, Pato, and we're really in the box seat to really hit this hard. And we've got the fucking Eagles this week, and our percentage is already great. Yeah. So, it's exciting times, mate.
Yep, spot on. So right now in this point of time, of course, we are 10th on the ladder. We are just behind Giants after they got the upset win against the Adelaide Crows, but that was always expected to happen because Adelaide and GWS were around the same area on the ladder. But of course, we are now 10th on the ladder, and now we're half a game outside the 8. So we are the position doesn't lie. Right now we are in the box C, where we now play West Coast next week. That should be a win. And we will then go, we don't really know what the results will be this week, but we have a chance now to kind of put ourselves into finals contention. But it's now down to how we respond to that, conversation about, Carlton might be back now. How do we handle that? Because that's the expectation once again, because this is one thing, this is why, to me, the lid is off for me, just because we beat Port Adelaide and we beat them for that's the first time they've lost in 13 games, Staff. It's pretty insane. And to do that and to have the pressure of they're playing against Port Adelaide, a little bit lesser Port Adelaide, which makes it a little bit tougher in my opinion, just because they have a few outs and we're kind of expected to win. We were favourites going into the game because of their outs, in my opinion, but also we still have to beat them. That's the thing. They didn't have a lot of outs. Like they had a few. But we had a few outs as well. We lost our key forward 5 minutes into the game.
Matt
Kennedy as well. Matt Oies as well was laid out. Yes. And probably you can also name that. Probably it's probably good that Matt Oies got injured. You hate to see that, but we then brought in a guy like Jesse Motlop, who of course kicked 4 goals, which was absolutely insane to see. But of course, we'll now move on to the initial thoughts, just to kind of recap the whole situation, the game that was, of course, played at Marvel Stadium. So, of course, we're starting now to look like the real deal. But we don't know if it's just because this is a bit of a phase where we see a few, 3 or 4 games in a row, which we've seen with the Carlton Football Club the past maybe 5 years. We've seen 4 games in a row and we've really looked good. We've gotten excited. But now it's time to know that you guys can do it. You guys can actually do it. You guys are now, even hearing the commentators as well, because I had to replay the game halfway through the day just because I wanted to try and watch that first half to kind of wrap my head around the review, of course, but to kind of just hear the commentators saying this Carlton football, like the excitement that the commentators got as well. Like even I think it was Hutto who was doing the game, and he was just calling a lot about just how exciting a lot of the moments were. Like even Charlie Curnow flying at the ball, or whether it was Cripps barging through packs. It was just good to see. But of course, it's a huge win. It's probably, in my opinion, it has to be our biggest win for the season, other than probably then maybe Geelong to a stretch. But my initial thoughts, there's a lot to kind of get through throughout this episode, but kind of take me through your initial thoughts for the game.
No, really good. Like I said, I haven't, we've seen some good performances over the last 2 years, but there's something about the performance on the weekend that I was so trusting of them to finish off the game. Even when there was, minutes there where, Port might have been on top, which happens in footy games, but not letting that affect the whole game. And it was just one of the best team performances. And, when you talk about month, form, it's the best month form I've ever seen. Best month form, apart from maybe 8-2 last year, but even the month this year, like over the last few years, those months, some of those wins might have been scraping over the line. We've won 50 plus the last 4 weeks, Pato. I'm not sure when the last time that happened in Carlton history. It might have been, maybe a decade or it's pretty hard to do. And we're doing it with ease, and Port Adelaide a second. And, we were saying, obviously we had a comment on our video, our preview of the game saying we're getting a little ahead of ourselves, but I saw enough the last 3 weeks to know that we were going to win the game. If we played the way we know they can. And it's just fantastic to see. And, obviously I compare the first 4 weeks and then the last 4 weeks in terms of the winning streaks. They are so different. They are so different in terms of that round 2 to I think round 5 compared to round 13 to round 17 now. That wasn't convincing footy. That's where we got found out. And then this footy is this can really, really, I don't know, it can compete this year, Pato, because we just got to make it. Because if we can make it, I think, seriously, you look at the ladder now, with the bottom kind of, I'll go from probably 6th down to probably, 12th in terms, you got St Kilda, they're sliding. I think personally, I think they miss. The Dogs, they're always very, very fragile, aren't they? And then Essendon, they've got the Dogs. So one of them comes out this week. If the Giants, Carlton, or Richmond win. So, and Richmond's in there as well. The Giants are in there, which is, it's hard to get a read on them because they've won 5 in a row. They've played really good footy. I think we've both played really good footy in the last month or so. So you could see both of us in. But it's just a matter of we've just got to win the games we need to win because we've ticked over that Port one, like we said. And we needed to get one of them, Collingwood or Melbourne. But now we can have a crack at Melbourne and Collingwood. Now, obviously, hopefully we get over the line against the Eagles, which I think we will. But then you get over to Collingwood and then you start that momentum and then you hit these big games hard. And obviously you got the Saints as well in there. And then obviously that last game, which hopefully we don't have to rely on against the Giants, which technically could be a mini final for both teams.
As you said, because we I think it was at the Baggers at the Bye episode where we were kind of going through the rest of the season and kind of going through what we have to try and find 7 wins and 2 losses out of those 9 rounds. And I know with me, I chose Port Adelaide and Collingwood as a loss, but of course Melbourne to be the upset. But even now, Melbourne aren't looking too great. And I think by memory, I think that you had the Collingwood game as a win, and you had the Saints and the Port game as a loss. I mean, I'm not too sure, but I think that's what you had.
I think so. Around there, Because then you look at the Saints now, and that's definitely a winnable game. So, I think personally, I don't think we lose that Saints game now. I just think the way we're playing, and I don't think we're going to lose twice to them in a year. I just don't think we will do that. So, interesting times, Pato, because we were talking about it 6 weeks ago that this season was done. And we were talking about 2024 and draft picks and who's going out the door and half the list has to go and the president has to go. It's funny how quick footy changes. People going, oh, it's season over, like round 13. It's too long in the season. We were both saying you just can't give up because this year is so tight. You get it on a winning streak, you got to make the 8.
Yeah.
And, even the Suns are a game off the 8.
Yeah.
They've just sacked the coach.
Yeah.
Like, it's ridiculous. And somehow the Swans are close, but obviously the Freo Dockers, I think, are done now.
Yeah.
You could probably rule them out. Personally, I'd probably rule out the Swans as well. I'd imagine it'd be us, Adelaide, Richmond, and Giants out of the top 8 that can probably challenge it. Richmond too, I'm not entirely sure on, but the way we're playing, I think we can really just hit it hard because, like I said, like pre-show, why can't we have a crack at Collingwood? That's the question. Well, what are we holding back on? Like, they weren't super against Freo, to be honest with you. Like, they weren't, they've been playing really good footy, obviously a decent win, but if we don't believe, why are the players going to believe?
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like, it's got to be that cohesion both on and off the field for mine.
Yeah, and I think one thing that we kind of touched on before we press record for this episode is there's nothing really threatening from the Collingwood side of things. It's more just the belief that they come out like they somehow. It's more the fear of
and the brand.
Yeah, the brand of the football, but also if we're in front of 30 points with 6 minutes to go, it's the fear of shit, they're not going to go away. That's how I see it. It's kind of the fear from that side of things. And there's no one really threatening from this as their team. But as you said, it's their style, it's their brand, it's their values. Each game they go out there to please their supporters, but also to fight for their club every single week.
Yeah.
And that's what I want with Carlton. And that's what we're starting to get. And as you said, why should we be scared? Why should we be scared? Like, we just went out and absolutely dismantled the team that was 13 in a row. We dismantled about 50 point stuff. And we're meant to be scared of the arch rivals who are pretty much on the same sort of wavelength of Port Adelaide.
Yeah.
Why should we be worried? And we beat them by 50 points. If anything, they should be worried about us and what we could do.
Yes, they will be. No, seriously.
Yeah.
I've had chats and I'd imagine, you look at the teams around the 8. Me personally, I don't think Port can win the premiership. I just don't know if they can do it. I think they can definitely go up there. I'm not ruling them out because they've lost one game, but I just feel like Collingwood are definitely the step above, and they're the benchmark, in my opinion, by a long way.
Yeah.
But you look at it, why can't we threaten them? What happens if Collingwood play a qualifying final, they lose it, they get into a semi, and we've got them? Why? Like, it gets you excited, that stuff. But no, it's exciting because it's good to have a season that's not dead rubbers in the last 5 weeks.
Yeah, look at us. Like, we are already talking about finals. Next week we'll allude to fucking West Coast Eagles, mate. So to touch on what you said earlier about how the start of the season and how we won those games was so different to how they are now. So, of course, we beat Geelong by 8 points. We then beat Giants by 10 points. Then we also beat North Melbourne by 23 points with, of course, Richmond with the draw. Tell me what you think is the difference from those games to where we are right now in the season. So, obviously we are scoring a lot more, but tell me your thoughts about what you think has obviously changed in the game plan to round 1 to 5 to now round 15 to round 18.
It's just, scoring is massive. I don't think defence has been our issue. I seriously don't think a defence has been an issue, apart from maybe the Adelaide game where we got smashed. Like, we were talking about it for most of the year, and in terms of we're defending a great score.
Yeah. We
just can't score it.
Yeah.
We just could not score the ball, and especially in that Giants win, we struggled to score. I think it was 9 goals, 20, I think it was, which shows the just lack of kind of forward threat we had. And I think it was, again, kind of individual brilliance we were relying on in those games. And I can tell you right now, thank God we won those games. Yeah. Because if we started bad, we would not be in the finals conversation right now. So, yeah, there's a clear difference. There's a total buy-in. Every single player is playing their role. I've never seen a team hit harder. There's tackles. There was no time for Port Adelaide yesterday. Yeah. Around the contest. There was no time. Rosie was looking flustered. Pepper barely had an impact.
Yeah.
Like, these are good players of the AFL, what can you say? Because it's just brilliant to see. And I'll tell you right now that Marvel Stadium was rocking.
It was, wasn't it? It was insane of how, but it was almost a full house. It wasn't completely a full house, but when we kicked goals, also on the telecast as well, hearing that, it was deafening. It was almost. I mean, probably the first kind of memories that come to mind is Essendon when they're kind of at Marvel Stadium and they're playing well.
Yeah.
A few years ago when I know that the moment that comes to mind is when McDonald Tip and Woody when he kicked that goal against North Melbourne, that was deafening. Yeah. But that was almost the same, if not a little bit higher. And it just shows that when Carlton are up and about, their fans, but we don't. But even when we're playing like shit, we always go to the games. We try to as much as we can.
Yeah.
There's other teams that kind of go away and don't really watch their teams when they play like shit, but we are loyal towards our club. And that's one thing that Carlton supporters always need to have credit for is just they always show up no matter what the situation is. But of course, before we move on to the lines, which is a big shout out to every single line, defense, ruck, forwards, and also the midfield as well. That's completely... I reckon that's by far the complete performance by the whole team. That is by far the best I've seen them probably ever. Like that group probably ever perform in my life. So to touch on JSOS, you've written this down, Daffy Boy. Give him a contract extension, or as Hutto would say, give him a longer contract. But he needs to have a contract extension. I think that's an absolute lock that he will be at the Carlton Football Club next year. We don't know. But it seems like he's found that position, which is really good to see. And of course, to touch on a bit of a negative, two negatives actually, which is of course to touch on Harry Mackay. It seems, I mean, of course, he got a right knee injury. It seems like there's been ruled out of any ACL damage. We don't know. The club doesn't know. Scans are going to be hopefully come out tomorrow, but it seems quite positive. So that's good to see. And of course, before I transition to you, Daffy Boy, just the last thing we'll touch on is, of course, Jordan Boyd and his tackle was sent straight to the tribunal. Not too sure what you think about that. You have your hand on your head, and I completely agree. I think it's a little bit stiff on Jordan Boyd going straight to the tribunal. But when that happens, that usually means minimum of 3 games. So to touch on those 3, of course, Silvani, which is the positive, but of course, Mackay and Jordan Boyd, which were the 2 negatives, Daffy Boy. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I think JSOS, the passion he showed yesterday, not in terms of passion, but he just played a really good game of football. Yeah. I think he really stretched. Well, he covered for Mackay massively with 4 goals and his presence around the ground. And I'll tell you what, if there's any player in Carlton that Carlton fans love kicking a goal, it's Jack Silvani, isn't it? There's something about it. We just get around the bloke, and the passion, especially in the goal in the third quarter where it spun back in. Yeah. And that passion you could see, in his physical when he was getting up and about. It gets you up and about, gives you goosebumps, and he's just really good and showed why he's in the side. I think we were talking about him. I don't think he's going to leave. I think he's a Carlton man. He wants to play for Carlton for the rest of his life. He's a Blue born and bred, and I'd imagine he'd be getting the contract extension at some stage. I don't think he'll be leaving.
Yeah, spot on. And also to touch on a quick thing with Harry Mackay, a quick word for Harry Mackay and Jordan Boyd as well. Daffy Boyd, just I guess tell me your thoughts about Harry Mackay, how much of a loss that will be if it is a meniscus injury, but hopefully it's not an ACL injury or anything worse than that. But it seems to be maybe 6 weeks, but also Jordan Boyd going straight to the tribunal. A quick word about that. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's frustrating because he's in really good form, but hopefully it's like 6 weeks. I think it will be short term. So, he might be touch and go for finals if that's the case, which will be very, very interesting. But similar to Chugga Kennedy as well. So they're probably in similar situations. But the way for me, it's a kudos to Michael Voss. Being able to, we played like out of our skin without Harry Mackay on the side.
Yeah.
Like, we had multiple goal scorers. Jay Sauce became the second tall almost down there, and Jack Martin almost became the third tall. It was just, it all was in sync, and you didn't even notice Harry wasn't down there. I know it sounds shit, but obviously he makes such a big difference, obviously. But that's that's a sign of a good team. And you look at Collingwood, they're exactly the same. Doesn't matter who plays. Could be fucking 22 spuds out there. The way they play, they know what they need to do. Whether it's, McCreary or whoever, those types of players, they just get the job done. And on Boyd, he's won 3 games, and Rochelle punches someone in the face and gets 2. So but the good thing about Carlton is that we paid top dollar for lawyers. So hopefully, Boyd goes down to maybe 2 or 1, but we've got to definitely look at replacements for him. Maybe a Cowan, or I don't know. I'm not entirely sure.
Yep, spot on. God, everyone thinks that we pay Zach Williams and Mitch McGowan the most money. Mate, the lawyers get way beyond the pay. But, of course, now we'll just move on to a little bit more into there. Of course, as I just mentioned, just the team aspect and just how great they were. So we'll kind of touch on each area throughout the episode. And, of course, we'll touch on with the backline, which to keep Port Adelaide to 72 points, of course, they kicked 10 goals, 12, but to keep them to 72 points is pretty insane. And to name one name, I think they were all great, all 6 or 7 of them down there. But one name that I think you will touch on as well have to be Nick Newman. Nick Newman for me was insane of how well he played, and so underrated. That's one thing that he doesn't get enough, I guess, kudos of how good he actually is. But I guess, as you said, then I guess they were all in sync. But is there anyone else down there that, of course, Nick Newman was the absolute star down there, but of course, they were all collectively really good. What were your thoughts on everyone's game in the backline, Daffy boy?
Nick Newman, man. Nick Newman. Oh, baby. No, when he kicked the goal, when he kicked that goal as well, that was reward for his work during the game as well. That was probably one of my favourite goals of the game in terms of how that started. Obviously, Cotter, who's an absolute find, by the way. Yeah. Wow. Like he's really stepped up, and in my opinion, is probably almost up ahead of the pecking order of Zach Williams when he's back next year. So that's going to be an interesting watch for mine, because is he left or right footer? He can kick on both feet.
Yeah.
Kick on both feet. Has, good size about him, plays small, pretty good on the small forwards. He's just a good ball user. That's what you need at a back 50. And obviously Wiedering's 150th. Shout out to him. Obviously a good, solid performance by him as usual, just taking marks, just taking clunks like he usually does, just a normal field day for the Wiedering, the Austrian sausage they call him. But no, the last point I have here is this guy has copped flack over the years, but fuck me. Mitch McGovern's intent on the ball. Oh my God. The last month, to be fair, he's been really good.
Yeah.
He's been really, really good, and he's shown why, we've backed him in. And he's another guy who people are talking, he's going to go out the door. But I think he stays at Carlton. And apparently he's taking a shorter deal, which not a shorter deal in terms of payment. Yes, smaller deal. And yeah, he was fantastic. He was taking marks. He was hurting players. He was grabbing. He's the perfect kind of half-back, isn't he? He's that centre half-back. You just know where to get from him. And if he keeps that up, he seriously just deserves another contract at the club. And I'd imagine he stays, to be honest with you. I don't think he's going to go through all those years and move off to a West Coast for fuck's sake. So, yeah. Yep,
well, spot on. I know that too, the viewers that are watching on YouTube, they would have seen me point at me when, of course, you mentioned Mitch McGovern and saying that a lot of people have been, I guess, bagging the bloke of how he's performing. And I've definitely been one of them. I will be the person to put my hand up and say, this guy wasn't performing well enough. And for him to be able to come out from the shadows to perform in the shining light of Marble Stadium, and how well he played with a corky. we thought Gov would be replaced by Marchbank. We saw him in the emergencies, and we thought he would have been pretty much a lock to. Actually, when when the AFL app came through that it was laid out, I was like, oh, here we go, Mitch McGovern. And I'm like, man, what's he doing? But I'm like, but it was good to see that Gov was fit to play because, I mean, of course, if you're not 100% fit to play, you shouldn't be playing. And yeah, like, I guess just back to what I was saying about Mitch McGovern, I think the reason, because when he moved from Adelaide to Carlton, I was like, here we go, because I always was a fan of him. And I think the reason why I've been bagging him so much is just because I can see how good he can be. And I just wasn't seeing that on the weekly basis. And I'm like, what is going on? Why is he performing like that? It doesn't look like he wants to be there in the navy blue, and that's not how it is meant to be. And for him, only champions can do this. We mentioned this last episode. I think it was with Harry Mackay or even Patrick Cripps, of how, or maybe it was Wedding. It was someone who was a champion that was being able to kind of pull themselves out of the adversity from the media and supporters to then turn around and become a club favourite. And that's exactly what Mitch McGovern is doing. And I think he is an absolute lock to be in the navy blue next year. Because with how well he has performed the past few weeks, as you said, but also with the position he's playing in, like, he has so many strings to his bow that his ball use is absolutely amazing, but also his size, his agility, just everything is just really pleasing to see about Mitch McGovern, and it's really good to see. But yeah, I completely agree with you about what you said about the defense. So we'll now move on to the ruck conversation, which of course will include the midfield, but we'll touch on the rucks as just a singular, I guess, conversation. And it's Tom DeConnie, who we brought in, and it was a bit of a question to see how he would go as the number one ruck and how we would play with a actual ruckman in there. And of course, Jack Silvani as that second ruck. But Daff, what were your thoughts on TDK and Jack Silvani combination?
Superb. I thought it was probably one of TDK's better games for the club. I thought it was probably almost his best game for the club, in my opinion. I thought it was really, really good to ground the ground. I thought he definitely beat Lysette, who I think is definitely on the outer of the AFL as a whole. I think he's really struggling. He just physically just can't move, and it shows that, TDK and other ruckmen like him, who can move around the ground, have such an impact. And obviously Sauce, we'll touch on him as well on the forward line, because he was superb up there too. But his will and his effort around the ground, the ruck, is just what you want. And it's going to be interesting. I think it really relies for next year. Well, obviously we don't want to talk about next year right now, but with TDK, obviously that's going to be a massive watch, because there's one name that could be a replacement. I'm going to say, if TDK goes, we can get a cheap option.
Nope. Is there any?
Plays for the Melbourne Football Club. His name's Brodie Grundy.
Nope.
And there's obviously a bit of talk about him maybe leaving again, in terms of just, being the number one ruck. And I think we should have got him in the first place.
Spot on.
I think we should have got him in the first place. I think, he's that perfect guy to have with the sauce in the ruck. He can play. He's really good at, up forward. And he's just good as that main ruck. And apparently if he moves to another club, so Melbourne and Collingwood will pay for a bit of the salary, and then he'll go to that other club and they'll pay nothing. So why not? So if TDK goes, why not? You know what I mean? Like, you got Brodie Grundy's 27, 28. Chuck him in that midfield and we pay, $300,000 a year for him. He gets you excited. But no, Tommy was really good. And obviously it's his decision in the end. And hopefully he stays, because I'd rather him stay, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I completely agree. And that's the thing about Tom DeConnie, is that he obviously, if he was to stay at Carlton, he obviously will be on quite a bit of money. And that's just how it is. That's just how it is. Yeah. So it's more down to if we accept TDK to go, or if he wants to go and he doesn't want to stay at Carlton, maybe Grundy is that option. Because isn't that funny about how Collingwood is still paying their salary, his salary, and he might move away from Melbourne and he'll go to another club with two clubs paying their salary. But seriously, it's actually insane, because, as you said, I think he would probably rather play in the best 22 every single week and be in the VFL. Like, he wouldn't want to do that. So he would probably want to move to another club. Like, it's very unlucky on him because he's been shuffled around a lot. But I think with him, I think he would almost rather play in the best 22 most weeks. And it's interesting also with how he signed Mark Pittonet for 4 years halfway through the year. That's a big talking point as well come season's end. But it's a big one with TDK, and I think my gut feel says that he stays. I don't know about you, but my gut feel says he stays. But before we move on to the midfielders, I want you to tell me right now, is TDK staying or going?
He's staying.
He's staying? Yeah.
I think he's been a part of the journey for the last 5-6 years. And like I said, with most of these guys who are in the best 22, I don't think they're going to leave.
No.
We haven't seen many leave the club, and, we're a big club, so I don't think he'll leave. But once again, you never know. And we haven't had a player leave, so maybe he's the real big one to leave.
Yep. Spot on. Well, we have had SBS leave, and that was a pretty big one. But okay, so now we'll move on now to, of course, the midfield that we need to touch on. As a collective, they were absolutely fantastic. So, of course, we'll go through a few names, I guess, with how great all the midfielders played. So, of course, Sam Doherty, 26 touches with 15 kicks, 11 handballs, which is great to see. Patrick Cripps, 24 touches with 1 goal. Blake Acres as well, I thought was really good as well. Arguably, he's probably the best game he's played in Navy Blue. In my opinion, I think it was really good. And you could see how effective he was with his disposal. And he actually stood out a little bit more to me. So, I think with him, it's really good that he's starting to get some confidence as well. But, of course, Sam Walsh, 23 touches as well, 7 kicks, 16 handballs. That's a little bit interesting. But I think you need to have that one player that kind of gets the ball out to the runners in Sard or Newman. But George Hewitt as well, 19 touches, a little bit of a quieter game from his end. But it's good to see him back. And hopefully he can really try and build his confidence forward. So with Matt Kenny out, maybe that is George Hewitt's role to kind of take with both hands, and it's really his opportunity now where he can start to get some good games going. And then as soon as he gets that opportunity, who knows, we can really see George Hewitt in the best 22 again for the Navy Blue. But of course, the last midfielder, which is a little bit interesting, it's probably arguably not the greatest game he's played this year, which is Adam Chera. So he had 17 touches, 3 kicks, 14 handballs. But of course, he was out, I think about halfway through that fourth quarter. I think he was ruled out for the rest of the game. So I think it was just a little bit precautionary from Chera's point of view. But yeah, I mean, out of those names, Duffy Warrior, I think there's a lot of big names, especially Paddy Cripps and Sam Doherty, and also Sam Walsh to a stretch. But out of those names, they're all very, very impactful in their own right. But what were your thoughts on the midfield as a whole?
Yeah, really good. I agree with your point on Acres. I think he was definitely a standout, cutting through lanes and taking blokes on and handballing in right spots. But he tends to be in the right spots most weeks. Obviously, when we were playing a little bit worse, obviously he wasn't getting used, or those players wouldn't turn into anything. But I think now him being in a good side is going to make him play even better, in my opinion. He's one of those players. Being with good players around him, it's going to help him. So it's really good to see that, and obviously shows why he made the move over. So Sam Walsh, just going to put it out there. Didn't have a preseason. Imagine that guy with a preseason, for fuck's sake. Holy balls, man. He's hitting targets. That one where he did the stoppage where he took a few blokes on and hit Charlie on the tit. Fuck. Come on, man. That is Brownlow-esque stuff. Obviously not this year, but maybe next year when he wins the Norm Smith. But he was really good Walshy. It's good to see. Obviously, Ches had a quiet game. I didn't realise he had 3 kicks to 14 handballs. That's a big differential. But the way we were playing was quick and moving. So the handball to kick, ratio was massive. And, I think it's gotten smaller over the last few weeks. And that's why we've been winning as well, because I think we were a kick-based team when we were losing. There was no run off half back. There was no run through the middle, and it's just there's no movement if you're just kicking too much and too slow. I thought Cripps' second half was really good. I think he led the game in clearances with 10. So I think he's the first ever player to have 40 games with 10 plus clearances.
Shit.
So that's really good by him. Obviously, cops a bit of shit from the AFL public, but geez, he gets in and under crib of the Brownlow medalist. So, and Doc was really, really good. I thought Doc was really, really good. And in my opinion, I just watched the game over again. I thought George Hill was really good.
Me too.
I thought he was very, very, very good, and it was definitely the George we've seen, earlier in the year and especially last year. He'll always be underrated because he's that guy who's in and under and gets that handball that sets up the goal. He might get the first of the handball chain. He's just smart. He's just really smart footballer, George, and he's someone you really need in your team. And then you also look at your other midfielders, in terms of wingers and stuff like that with Cotters, he's almost turned into a goal snake, really. He's kicking goals every week up forward, which is another element to our forward line.
Yep.
But also, on our wing, and David Cunningham. David Cunningham.
How good is he?
You look at the stat sheet and you go, he only had 16, but I'll tell you right now, 16 of those touches would have set up something.
Yeah.
Because he's an absolute freak. He's one of those guys, my brother was saying today, he's one of those guys on grand final day that would win kick 5 on grand final day or something like that. You know what I mean? Those players, there's something about him, there's something about, he's got that X factor that we've been saying, and along with other additions as well that we'll touch on in the forward line.
Yeah. But just to touch on David Cunningham, you kind of saw with both of us, we were just a little bit like, just how good is this guy? He's just so exciting to watch. And he laces out every single target he kicks. Every single one. I'm like, is he going to miss a target? Genuinely.
Doesn't miss set shots.
Yeah, he doesn't miss set shots. He's just overall, I mean, I've actually called him a bit of the Rolls Royce, I guess, sort of player the past few weeks, but he's just exactly like that. He's just clean. He's got to be the zip about him as well, Daffy boy. You know what I mean? But I'm sure you would be driving around the Rolls Royce every single week, mate. But but I mean, Cutter's generally he's just insane. As you said, as you beautifully just said, Dan, I just think he's insane, and he's such an asset in this team. Because in the forward line, yes, but also in the midfield, just for that change. Yeah, and to just touch on the forwards for a little bit of sneak peek is also Lockie Fogarty. This guy, we'll probably now transition now into the forward lines, but Lockie Fogarty, 1 goal and 11 touches. That, to me, that's one of the ones where the stats kind of do lie.
Yes.
You kind of look at it and be like, oh, that's not great. 11 of those touches were impactful. Every single one of those.
Yes.
Every single one of those. And he's just insane. And I don't think he gets enough credit of how good he is. But to now touch on the forward line, Daff, take me through some names that they were probably as a collective the best attacking forward game I have seen ever in my life as a Carlton supporter. But what were your thoughts on the forward line? Just insane, weren't they?
Oh, mate, seriously, obviously touched on Fogarty there. Does he miss tackles? He sticks him. That's so vital. It's so vital. It's just sticking tackles when you need to stick tackles. It really holds up Port's momentum going forward. It held it up so many times yesterday, especially when you're getting tackles that you'd rather be tackling them in our forward half rather than our back half.
Yeah.
Because then you get a stoppage in your forward half and it leads to more goals. And what happens, Paddy? You kick more goals. So, yeah, Fog really good. Just plays his role. That's all we need. He doesn't need to be a superstar. Does not need to be a superstar whatsoever. It's really good to see. And I think he's definitely earned himself a contract a year or two for mine. Jesse Motlop, another name. Obviously he didn't think he was playing and he was late in the warm-up. And he comes in and kicks 4 goals and a half, which is credit to him because he's been in the twos for the last 4 weeks, plugging away. He's been kicking goals in the twos and he's transferred that form into the best 22. And I'll tell you right now, he'll be playing over Owies next week. He'll be playing over Matt Owies next week for sure.
Yep.
For sure. Because Matt Owies will be absolutely devastated because he got injured and the guy comes in, kicks 4. And that's the reality of being in a good side. Your spot isn't safe.
Yeah.
And whether you're Brodie Kemp, Mitch McGovern, whoever, doesn't matter who it is. You know, obviously you got your stars who will play every week, but you just can't take it for granted. And obviously Matt Owies is a hard worker, and I'd imagine he comes back in fine form. Obviously he's got a bit of calf tightness currently, but no, it's really good to see. Jesse play really well. Jack Martin, similar as Cunningham, does the right things, throws his body around, hits hard. There's nothing more I can really say about Jack Martin. And he kicks his goals, and that inboard kick to Chera when he was on the far, when Charlie's kicked that ball and it rolled and he turned inside, I'm like, yes.
Insane.
I was like, we just hadn't seen that during that shit part of the, we were just looking forward. You're looking sideways into the ground, and then you get Chera, who's got an open look at the 50, and we end up getting a goal from it. So, and, obviously Harry's out, which is frustrating. And obviously Jay Sauce with 4 goals as well, which is a career high for him. Yeah. He was putting Tom Jonas on toast for most of the game, and you can definitely see why Tom Jonas has been playing in the sample for the last 8 weeks, because he was copping on the Port Adelaide socials. If people are watching, maybe check that out, because it's a good laugh. It's a good laugh. It's a good laugh. But and Connors as well. Like I said before, he's another dynamic to the forward line, because his running power is so enormous that he can get goals out of just his run. And I think that was especially off that where Jack Martin with the Chera inside to Cottrell in the forward line. That was his running. His opponent couldn't keep up with it, and he kicks an open goal. Easy goals. I've said every episode to you in a review, Pato, that Essendon game, we were both saying, just get a little tink lead, little lead, hit up a 45 kick, get an easy shot on goal. We weren't getting easy goals.
Yeah,
people think. I really truly believe people think hard goals win your games. They don't win your games. Easy goals win your games. Like, we don't want Charlie popping them from 55 every shot. I want him popping it from 10 metres out if I wanted to. Yeah. Seriously. And most of our goals, there was probably how many goals in the goal square? 4 or 5?
Yeah.
We were struggling to kick 5 goals in a game, Pato, about 4 weeks ago. Like, seriously, that is the difference for mine. And, credit to the forward coaching and obviously Michael Voss for really backing in the system, because it's like 2 separate seasons right now. It's doing my head in a bit. Like, it's a bit weird. It's a bit of a weird situation right now, because, like, come September, if we're playing, it's going to feel very weird, because obviously we haven't played in a while. But the way we were playing in that 6-week period, geez, the bottom 4, Pato. We were a game off Hawks who were terrible.
Yeah. But isn't that insane that we were 15 in round 13, 14?
Yeah,
that is insane. and it's credit to the group. Like, yes, you say coaches, yes, you say Vossi, yes, you say the club as a whole, but it's the group. It's the guys that go out there every single week to I guess, just go at that game plan. Like, make sure you execute with that game plan. And they could have easily dropped their heads now and say, "Oh, season's done. Nah, fuck this. Nah, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm gonna wait till next season. Big preseason." You could have put players on ice that looked a little bit sore. No, they chose to stick with it, because Vossi, and credit to Vossi. That's one thing. Credit to Vossi, because the amount of shit that guy would have gone through that 6-week period, us included, we were questioning his job. We were like, is this guy the right guy? But credit to him, seriously, because he is some way, we don't know how he does it, but some way he has found a way to just rejuvenate this group. And this has been something that we've been crying out for 10 weeks, that we just haven't seen. And they've finally found something within themselves to, I guess, to actually play for themselves as well, but also play for the jumper. That's the main thing. Playing for the jumper, because they're representing over 100,000 supporters. It's pretty insane of how they've done that. And I don't think Voss gets enough kudos of how well he has done to be able to turn this table. And we don't know if we're going to make finals. Still very tough, as you said, halfway through the episode, but it's just right now, we can only go week by week, and we can only beat the opposition that we have week by week. And once again, We've done a big scalp with beating Port Adelaide, who, of course, we have broken their 13-match winning streak that we've mentioned a few times throughout the episode. But it's just insane. And this is probably right now, like even last night, I was almost a little bit emotional because
Yes.
it was just so, how good it is. How good, because we put so much into this club. Every single blood, sweat, and tears into this club, and to actually see it come, we don't know, but to
Process,
but to see some sort
work.
but to see some sort of light towards the finals is just insanity, and it's just it's really good to see. So, of course, the last segment that we'll touch on, there is a lot of them, Daft Boy. A lot of them. Of course, I posted a story throughout the day to kind of ask all the fans and to ask who they thought the best on ground was. But as I said, there were so many out there. And then I posted so many names on the story just because of how great everyone was. But it's going to be tough, Daff. But if you were to name one name that was best on ground from your point of view, who would you say?
Jack Silvani for mine. I thought he was best on ground. He's really not a breakout game, and I think it was more in terms of the impact he had, and obviously he's had some, obviously been in and out of the side, and now he's gone, yep, I am a best 22 player, and I am, in any form, whether I'm playing centre forward, ruck, centre half back if you need me, in the middle, whatever. I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be in that team. And he's a massive, he's just like a utility player. He can play in any position. Imagine come finals, pretend a player goes out, he can fill the void.
Yeah.
He can fill the void to a really good ability. I guess a master of all trades in a sense. And, what he had 19 touches, 4 goals, 11 score involvements. I think he had 5 tackles or something like that, 5 marks. And his ball use since he's come back, his ball use has really stepped up. And I think as a whole, we've really stepped up.
Yeah.
I think that's why players were playing bad, because as a team, we were playing bad. There was just no connection. It was really hard to play good footy individually, but J-Sauce for mine.
So I completely agree. I think Joe Silvani is definitely the best on ground. But you mentioned there about how it's not necessarily his breakout game. From my point of view, that is 100% his breakout game. Because of the, I guess, role that he played. I'm like I know that you probably would agree with the role that he played. That's his breakout game, and he probably has had a breakout game in the past.
Yeah.
As a forward,
so he's a breakout. Yeah. I get what you mean.
I'm trying, I'm sure that's what you were trying to, I guess, imply. But from Silvani and his, because that's his role. That is his role now, and this is something that we've been asking the past few weeks. Is this his role? But now it seems like that second ruck forward, that is his role. And I'm just so pleased because halfway through that season, I'm like, we aren't going to see Jack Silvani next year in the navy blue. But now he's been able to readjust his form, readjust his craft, and to be able to be that second ruck is just insane. But of course, that's the last segment that we're going to touch on for the review episode. I know that's by far, in my opinion, not too sure about you, but Daffy Boy, but that is by far our biggest win this season. Almost in my life as a Carlton supporter, to some stretch, just for different reasons of how well we played, how we had the pressure on us, how
we didn't fail. We didn't fail at the
didn't fail. Yeah,
eyes were on us this week finally. And we've had so many games in the past where we had to win for a certain thing, where it's finals. I guess you could say round 23 last year, or even the last 2 rounds of last year. The eyes were on us to make the 8, and we failed. But games like that against the top side, you just can't get better than that. Yeah. You can't get better than that, to be honest.
Yeah, completely spot on. But I think that's by far the best game I've seen in the navy blue, and just for so many reasons. And it's just so pleasing, and hopefully we can look back that at the end of the season that we can hopefully we played a few finals and we can look back at these moments and being like, we were in pretty we were pretty unsure of how this season was going to pan out, but now we can look back at these moments and we're like, yeah, that was pretty awesome to look back on. But of course, that is the last segment for the episode, Daffy Boy. But is there anything else you would like to touch on before we wrap up the episode?
Let's just keep going, keep the momentum going. The lid's off. It has to be off, whether other fans like it or not. We're up and about, and we're coming. We are coming with a full steam of I don't know what, but we're going to be there, and hopefully we can make the 8. Hopefully, because seriously, I think we can do some damage come September.
Yep, spot on. One more question before we wrap it up: are we making the 8?
Yes.
Oh,
see you there. There's the national anthem on September, whenever the first elimination final is.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter because I bought my grand final tickets last night, mate. So it doesn't matter. But of course, of course, I'm kidding. I'm kidding to all the Carlton supporters or the mutual supporters who think we're kind of we are kidding. That was a joke. But of course, to all the subscribers out there on YouTube, but of course on our podcast platforms as well, make sure to try and like and subscribe on YouTube as well, but also on Spotify. And of course, as we just said, all the podcast platforms we're on, as we do every single week, we release 2 episodes a week, a preview and a review. But of course, you are all over the socials, Daffy Boy, and credit to you because how much work you do throughout the week, it's an absolute credit to you. And of course, the episodes that we do, it's really enjoyable from my end, but also from your end as well. But is there anything else you want to touch on?
Yeah, just likewise, mate. Obviously you put a lot of work into the editing space. You're the pro video editor over there, but no, it's good. I think we work pretty well together, and obviously the cohesion on the field, off the field is working well. Finally, we put it apart for about a year or so getting this going, and now they're finally getting there. We're getting the reward, Pato. Yeah. And like you said, it's going to be good to document this at the end of the year to see where this takes us, because it could be a bloody good documentary.
Yeah, spot on. A bit of a sneak peek for the doc at the end of the year. So hopefully it actually comes to some sort of success towards the end of the year. We don't know what happens, but God, it would be pretty cool to do that documentary and actually see how the season pans out. But of course, as we said, make sure to like, comment, subscribe on all the platforms that we're on, and also on our social platforms. Make sure to try and follow us and try and keep up with all the Blues news within the week. But of course, we will see you for our preview episode against West Coast Eagles. But of course, to you, Daffy Boy, and to all the baggers out there, up the baggers! Up the baggers!